Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's May 15th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. This is a great representation of the ridge of high pressure out over the Pacific Ocean here. British Columbia getting the lion's share of the clouds this morning. We should have a fairly nice day across portions of Washington and Oregon today, but we are definitely in for a cool down as we have a system dropping down as we go through the day tomorrow and on through Friday morning. Strong pressure gradient, strong onshore flow, and this will be cooling us down dramatically as we go towards the weekend here with additional troughs probably in the wake of that system. We'll dive into those details as we go through the video here this morning, taking a closer look at the visible satellite imagery, and you can see we may have some lenticular cloud activity here, as you can kind of see the ridge again with some of the cloud activity riding over the top of that. But that is not going to be the big weather maker here. The onshore flow, the strong winds and precipitation returning definitely will be. Thunderstorm outlook today, extreme portions of southeast Idaho, some of Alberta, Montana, but for the most part we're not dealing with the thunderstorm threat yet. Anyway, today, taking a look at 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. Again, you can see the ridge out over the Pacific Ocean here. And as I put this into motion, you can see that ridge flatten out as we go through today. And as we go through tonight into tomorrow morning, you'll see this very power-packed pressure gradient rolling down across the area here. This is going to bring a strong onshore flow. We could get some strong winds for certain areas. We'll dive into that in a bit more detail here in a moment. And as we scroll on in towards the weekend, you can see additional troughing probably hanging out here across much of the west coast as we go into the early portion of next week. So fun stuff to look at if you like some active weather here across the Pacific Northwest. And then this one wants to open up right over California and some of Oregon here as we go on in through next week. Plenty of time to worry about that, but we've definitely got a big change in our weather coming up here. Taking a look at the GFS, let's see what kind of model agreement we have as we scroll on in through Thursday and Thursday night. Pretty good model agreement with the European. Again, this is going to be a power-packed gradient, and all the trees out there are going to have leaves on them. So any kind of wind activity that we do get is going to be enhanced because that acts as a sail, and it can bring some additional damage to those trees, which then can fall on power lines and maybe even bring some nuisance power outages here. And as we scroll off in towards the weekend, you can see the GFS kind of keeps that troughing going as we go through Sunday. We roll on in through next week, and another trough drops right down across portions of southwest BC, western Washington, and western Oregon as we go through next week. Taking a look here at sea level pressure here. This is at the surface. Again, the ridge of high pressure nosing up towards Vancouver Island of British Columbia here, trying to keep some of the clouds out of Washington, Oregon, not doing as great a job for British Columbia, as you know, as we saw in the infrared satellite imagery. We'll scroll in as we go through today. This is this afternoon. You can see that ridge shrinking and weakening here, and you'll see that low pressure system swinging down across the Rocky Mountains here, and that's what's going to bring that pressure gradient. We're going to have some strong westerlies, some northwesterlies, and in advance of it, we're going to have some southwesterly winds also. And some of the models are showing some pretty interesting gusts across some of the central Puget Sound and some of the east slopes of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon. We'll look at that here in a bit, but you can see that low pressure slide here, and you can see the high pressure out over the Pacific Ocean. And of course, air wants to go from high to low. So it's going to bring a bit of wind with it as it moves through the area. And then you can see the ridge try to nose in just a hair, but then there's probably going to be additional systems after that. Going to keep us in a cool pattern here as we go through next week. So the North American model, this is composite reflectivity. This is what the Doppler radar may look like over the next few days. As we scroll through today, you can see not much in the way of precipitation. We start heading into Thursday morning to see the shower activity really start to increase across some of southwest BC. Not a lot of it here, but you're going to notice it as we go through the day tomorrow, and then it starts moving down into Washington, some of the higher terrain. Also, you get some convergent zone activity as we go through the evening hours tomorrow across western Washington. You can't even rule out a shower here for some of the higher terrain of eastern Washington, eastern Oregon, Idaho, Panhandle, western Montana, as that system slides down across the area. Now, looking at lightning flash density potential, I just wanted to point this out. We're not seeing much in the way of lightning potential, except for maybe across eastern British Columbia here, maybe some of the higher terrain off towards the Rocky Mountains as we go through Saturday afternoon and evening. So Thursday afternoon and evening, I should say. So taking a look at the European, this is last night's European model run here. So if we put this into motion, we're going on through this afternoon. Nothing too bad yet, but as we go through the day Thursday, you'll see Check it out. You see that? 41 mile per hour gust for Seattle. That would cause some problems here with fully leafed trees out there. And you can see some 40 showing up down the Strait of Juan de Fuca, the Strait of Georgia here as well. And some strong winds for the east slopes of the Cascades. Eastern Washington could get some blowing dust with that. And also maybe some minor tree damage also. So we'll be watching that closely. You can see a lot of places like Oregon aren't going to get strong winds as far as the Willamette Valley is concerned. But some of the Cascades and east slopes through the gorge, whatnot, and some portions of northern and northeast Oregon could get some stronger winds, as well as Idaho and on in through Montana. Now, if we take a look at the ensemble, you can clearly see where the European thinks the strongest winds are going to be as we go on in through the day tomorrow, Thursday. You can see pretty good agreement for 40 plus mile per hour gusts, which again could cause some issues at this time of year. The control run is right at 41 and the ensembles are in pretty good agreement. However, the European is a bit of an outlier here. So as we look at the Canadian high resolution model, we'll put this into motion and we're going to scroll ahead to Thursday. And you can see it does call for a 32 mile per hour gust, but that's a big difference between a 41 mile per hour gust as far as the actual force it exerts. And as we scroll on in through Thursday night, you can see, again, see some strong northwesterly and some westerlies down the Strait of Juan de Fuca, maybe up towards 45 miles per hour. Some gusts up over 40 would be of a concern at this time of year. If we look at the North American model, we're going to scroll ahead here and we're going to go into Thursday and let's see what it shows for Seattle. It does show 30, but again, a big difference between a 41 or a 42 mile per hour gust and some strong westerlies coming. The biggest wind gust probably across some of the higher terrain east slopes, the Cascades of Washington, British Columbia, and on through the east here. Some gusty winds showing up as we go through Thursday night also. But you can see some strong winds coming down the Strait of Georgia here also. Check it out. You can get a gust up towards 50 miles per hour. So we got to keep our head on a swivel here through the next day or so. We're gonna be able to look at this tomorrow morning before this wind really starts to pick up. So we'll have one more day to look at that, but have a heads up for that. You can see not too big of a deal for places south of Seattle and down through the Willamette Valley. However, now taking a look at the high resolution rapid refresh, let's take a look at what it has to say. Let's go all the way into tomorrow here, and what does it have for Seattle? 31, 32. So as you can see, the models generally agree on low 30s, but the European continues to show 40 plus mile per hour gusts across some of the central Puget Sound. But again, Strait of Georgia, Strait of Juan de Fuca, east slopes of the Cascades of British Columbia, and some of northern Oregon here as well. Now, if we take a look here, I don't think this is updated yet. I'm doing the briefing pretty early this morning before I go in for my procedure that you guys may have heard about last night, but it doesn't look like Portland or Seattle has updated yet for today. But anyway, the high temperature average for this time of the year is 66. We should be breaking that by almost 10 degrees for Seattle, for example, probably right around 75. You can see the GFS calling for 77, and then the cool down starts to come here as we go through the weekend here, and not much of a sign of a warm up after that for a while. This can change, though. It's that time of year where things can change quite rapidly, but we do show some troughing over the next week or so, or even longer, week to 10 days, I should say. Now, taking a look at the national blend of models, check it out for Seattle today, 75. Look at Portland and Willamette Valley, maybe hitting 80, some upper 80s for eastern Washington, 70 maybe for southwest BC. Nice warm temperatures, but you can see the cool down that's coming for tomorrow and Friday here, and we go through the weekend here, and we're not getting much out of the lower 60s for some areas like Seattle and Portland, maybe some lower 70s showing up here, but we'll see how that goes, and we'll continue to watch those troughs and break down that data on a day-to-day basis. National blend of models, total precipitation in inches. So as we go through the day Thursday, it does show just 100th of an inch there, man. It's just tough squeezing out precipitation sometimes this time of year. But as we go through it next week, we may get additional troughing here and may get some additional precipitation amounts. But you can see places like the Rocky Mountains and, Alberta and eastern British Columbia here seem to be doing much better. If I zoom out a bit here, you can see this would be very beneficial for places up in Canada here. They're dealing with some pretty moderate, severe, and extreme drought in some of the North Cascades as well. This would be beneficial precipitation here, although not much of that making its way down towards places like Oregon. So if we look at total snow in centimeters, national blend of models, and again, showing some beneficial snowfall for Alberta, the Rocky Mountains, and British Columbia, some of the Cascades of Washington, Oregon, just getting a skiff of snowfall here. Not too much, nothing you'd write home about. But if we take a look at the European ensemble mean, you can see again kind of that precipitation anomaly favoring British Columbia and Alberta, and Washington kind of a mixed bag there, and Oregon below, Idaho below, some of western Montana below, where we're dealing with some pretty dry conditions as well. And you can kind of see that reflected as we have some severe and extreme drought across Montana, Idaho, and there is some moderate drought across Washington and Oregon right now. Of course, worse across portions up in Canada. Already some fires are burning. It's been bringing some smoke down into the lower 48 already. And this could have big impacts on places like Southwest BC, Seattle, Portland, Idaho, and Montana as we go on in towards the summer months. So hopefully this beneficial precipitation really helps with some of that fire activity out there. But anyway, yep, I'm up so early this morning because I'm going in for a procedure here. Once you hit 50, they want you to go in there and do your colonoscopy thing. So I feel much better than I thought I would after drinking all of this stuff. So, we'll go in and see what they find out there. It's always a little bit nerve-wracking when they do some exploratory stuff like that and what they may find. But anyway, I'll probably know here in a few hours either way. So anyway, hope you guys are having a good day. Click like and subscribe. We will do this again tomorrow, so I'll be able to take the rest of the day off and just kind of rest at home. I'm sure I'll be drowsy. But anyway, so I will see you guys tomorrow, and I'll talk to you guys then.